Hello! In this video we are going to have a look at one of Xdebug 3.1's new features, compression support for profiling files and trace files. Xdebug 3.1 introduces compression for profile files and trace files, reducing the amount of space they take on disk. The support for this is provided by the Xdlib library, which Xdebug's compilation configuration stage detects and enables. By default, the flag is turned on, and Xdebug's configuration stage will make sure that Xdlib is available on your system. This line shows you that the configuration flag was enabled. And a little further down we also see that Xdlib was detected on the system, with the right version. By default the flag is turned on, but if you want you can disable it by passing the without Xdebug compression setting. You then see that the configure script now says no. And there is also no line to indicate that Xdlib was tried to be detected. The Windows binaries always have compression enabled. Now let's create a compressed profile file and a compressed trace file, and compare the size differences. Let us first make a trace file. I'm using a script from the xdebug.org website as a simple example. I use this script for generating a documented xdebug.ini default file. For this demo I want to create multiple files, so I'll create a separate directory to store these files in, to make it easier to see what's going on. Now let's create the trace file. I'm using the environment variable xdebug_mode to select Xdebug's mode. In order to create a trace file for the full request, we need to set Xdebug's start with request to yes. We also need to configure our output directory. Then we can add our script name and redirect the output to a file. In most cases you want to make these configuration settings in PHP inice file. Let's have a look at which files have been created. And here you see the trace file, which compresses approximately 26 megabytes. Similarly, let's create a profiling file. I change the mode to profiler. The default for the profiler is always to start with a request, so we don't need to keep that setting. But we are keeping the setting for configuring the output directory. Now let's run this. And let's see which files we have again. And here you can see that the profiling file is about 520 kilobytes. You can see that Xdebug automatically has added the gz suffix to these files to indicate that they are compressed files. Tools like Vim can open these files right away. Let me just open the trace file. And you see the uncompressed information here. I will also open a profile file with Vim, although that doesn't provide much useful information. This is much harder to read, so instead we use a tool called kcachegrind, which can also open compressed files. If you want to know how to analyze these profiling files, I can refer you to a video that I've made earlier, which is popping up in the top right of your screen right now. Some tools cannot open compressed files, such as some variants of qcachegrind, the Mac OS and Windows variant of kcachegrind. Therefore, it is possible to turn off compression even though it has been enabled with this build of Xdebug. We do that by setting the use compression setting to 0. Let's now do that for both a trace file and a profile file. First, the trace file. And then secondly, the profile file. Now let's see which files have been created again. You can see that the file size for profiling files has been reduced by more than 80%, and for the trace file by more than 50%. If compression support with Xdlib for Xdebug is not enabled, then of course it will not create compressed files. And the default value of xdebug.use_compression is 0. If you change the use compression setting to yes, while Xdebug is not compiled with compression support, then of course compression will still not happen. As you can see, this file is not compressed. If you have Xdebug's log configured, then the log will contain a warning in this case. This is the message you'll find in your log file. I hope that you appreciate that Xdebug 3.1 now supports compression for profile and tracing files. If you enjoyed this video, please click like and subscribe. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.